evening, everybody. Star Trek, the original series, the first season, maybe the first episode, maybe the fifth episode, depending on what episode order you go on, is over. It has been since 1966, but we're just getting started here on Wednesday, Ted Trek original series, as we watch every original series episode not in order. And for February 24th, 2021, we were talking about the Man Trap. Let's bring in my dad, Ted, who is the namesake of the Ted Trek series. How you doing, Dad?
Good, thanks.
We're here to talk about salt vampires.
Salt vampires. Well, at least one. There was really only one, wasn't there?
Dave's frozen.
I think Dave's frozen.
Yeah.
It's a good look for him, though.
It's a good look.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you're frozen.
We
can hear you.
Froze mid intro.
Yeah,
So
it's
let's,
just you with a
Jody.
really stupid shit screen on it right now. It's pretty amazing.
There's not much I can do.
No, you're good now.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I can. Yeah, it's the controls just aren't responding, Captain. I can't get.
What are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do? I need more power.
And I want it now.
I'm giving her all she got, Captain.
Press. I keep trying to start Jody's video and it doesn't want to work. But they can hear you guys. So, hey, Jody. Hey, Adam.
Hello.
Sorry, an audio podcast, is it?
Well, I'm pressing the buttons here. Let me refresh.
You are very fuzzy, too.
Host has joined the broadcast.
Okay.
Oh, he looks much better now. There he goes.
Look at this. I can go 4. I can go 3. Who knows? All right. So we introduced Dad, Ted Mater. We have esteemed panelist Jody Simpson and panelist Woodward here to talk about the Man Trap, salt vampires, and technically the first episode of Star Trek because it was the very first to air. This was the episode that first aired in 1966. This is not the first one they produced. As I mentioned, it is episode 5. We won't jump into the orders because they didn't air their episodes in the order. They made their first bunch. They felt this was the strongest one to start the show with. That's from Sarah. And I guess was that the right choice? We've watched a lot of original series first season episodes. Was this the best episode to hit audiences with? Adam, let's go to you. You're shaking your head.
No, it wasn't. It would start again. You know what? They got a great hook. I think they do very well with the first 10 minutes of these shows. And you're interested. What's going to happen, man? But they lose that. I guess that enthusiasm for me anyway, and then it does circle back around, and they seem to rescue it every week. But that middle 20 minutes for me is like a little long. You know what? I was thinking about something. You go to Next Gen, and those episodes were like 41 minutes.
Yep.
I think the extra 10 minutes they had in the 60s was just a little too much.
It feels like it because I always feel like I'm starting the episode too late because I want to watch it as close to when we start as possible. And so compared to like a Deep Space Nine rewatch where it's like 40 minutes, this is a little bit longer, and because it just means more deaths, more victims of the salt monster, I think is really kind of the net result. And more kind of fooling around with this husband, this crater guy. But let's go to Jody next. Jody, the Man Trap. Were you trapped by it? Trapped by its awesome writing and acting and everything about it?
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say awesome. I think it's an interesting episode. I don't know if I would start the series with it, but I think it was. I think better about this episode than Adam does. Is probably where I'm at. It's. I do agree though. It felt long. Especially the last 10-15 minutes of this episode was just brutal long. I'm like, when is this gonna end? We know what's going on now. The only thing I think they could have did better was they should have not showed her as young, like really, really young blonde. If they took that part out, then at that point you wouldn't really know what's going on for a while. But because they showed us that almost right away, you're like, okay, well, obviously she's an alien. Like, there's no debate.
Bring this in. So this is the salt monster, officially the M113 monster. But it takes many forms, including Crewman Green and Dr. McCoy. And here's the blonde.
Yeah, there's the young blonde.
That's the first who she uses that, or it uses that form to get the first victim, that crewman that goes down with McCoy and Kirk at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then we have this was older version for Kirk. He saw her as the old, like what he kind of expected, and this was what McCoy was seeing, which was basically the same person with a different wig on. So
which I think if they just kept it those two, then there would be more intrigue through the episode.
Yeah, if we just saw these two, but once you get this,
you're like, does she have the ability to change her age, or and then at that point that would be all you're really thinking. But it's completely there. It's completely bad because of the fact that you see the fact that this blonde girl is what she looks like to this person. It's like, okay, well, we obviously know that this is the alien at this point. There's no debate.
Right. Can also be this crewman to seduce Uhura.
She tried.
Almost.
She tried, but Uhura way too smart for that.
Uhura to the bridge. Uhura to the bridge.
Uhura kind of got lucky that Sulu walked by at the right moment, and she was also being called to the bridge at that moment. Or she might have been one of the victims. No women are victims in this episode, only the men. Dad.
Well, that's why it's called the man trap.
Man trap. Yeah.
It is called the man trap. Good point. Yeah. Dad, the man trap is an episode. What do you make of this?
I thought, if I was the first time I watched Star Trek, I think that this was a pretty good episode because even though it was a little long and draggy because what you're used to, but it was pretty scary, especially a couple of the scenes in there where you didn't really know what was going on, even though they gave you kind of a little bit of a hint of that a couple of times, but it was pretty scary at times as a first watch.
When you saw this, when you saw the monster, was that the scariest moment?
Episodes that ever existed. Yeah, that's a scary dude. Did you notice his hands have all the suction cups on it?
I did. Yeah, the hands.
Well, that's where the markings on the face came from.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like so.
I thought this was decent. Like, this is a decent alien for a '60s TV show.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, but the fact that it eats salt specifically, isn't that kind of weird? Or
no, there's a lot of animals that eat weird things, and you can only assume like something like a mineral like salt, for instance, is available in other parts of the galaxy. So it wouldn't shock me that something would be absorbed to salt. It
doesn't shock me. I think it's like narratively, I guess is maybe more my question there is this because they could make it anything, but
well, if they made it something like some super spacey sounding mineral, like you wouldn't really care as much, right? So it's like, oh, it's salt. It's easy to get here on the Enterprise, Right. So I think that was the whole point.
And Dad, this whole thing about the buffalo, they keep talking about this reference that it's the last of its kind. It's the buffalo. And I can only think that this was its wagon train to the stars connection, that maybe they wanted more to be kind of more obvious.
Well, they mentioned buffalo, and they also mentioned something else. They meant just before the buffalo, they mentioned some other animal that's
another
extinct.
Species that basically has gone extinct, but was once
this is the last one of these creatures that existed, and after this, there would be no more.
Right, and they kill
it.
That
was the analogy. This is the last one.
Yeah,
they should have captured it and put it to work in the salt mines in Russia.
If they were thinking practically, yeah, the scientist in Spock doesn't. He's. But this happens a few times where they understand the scientific relevance of something, but then this thing is trying to kill us, so we have to defend ourselves. And and that's kind of what happens.
Well, this is also early in the first season too, so a lot of stuff that was established later on in season 1 doesn't take effect here. So Spock is way different than he is in later episodes. This is an early episode, and we have to judge it that way, I think.
I thought Aurora was trying to come on to Spock at one point.
Yeah, it's all the things that we're accustomed to later on in the series don't really apply to this episode. So there's not a lot there.
Right. And back to Adam. This is basically it's an introduction for a lot of characters. Again, it's the first episode, sort of. So it's the debut of characters. Well, basically all of them, right? Mm-hmm. Other than maybe Spock, but the cage didn't air. So this is kind of their introduction.
This is kind of the pilot episode in a way, yeah.
It's kind of the pilot. It's kind of not. I don't know how to view it, but it's McCoy's introduction really, because we're getting this whole backstory. It's not his ex-wife. This is just an old girlfriend, Nancy, right? And
that's my impression anyway.
And it's a big event. He gets to see her. I don't quite get it. Why? I don't know if you do.
No, I don't. I mean, I guess they're just lonely on the Enterprise. He's seeing a girlfriend that I guess they didn't leave on bad terms. Obviously, I wasn't sure why they left each other, but maybe because he was going into space. I don't know. But long and short, he was definitely excited to see her. And which is odd because yes, he's going to meet her with her husband, which is just strange.
Yeah, why is he so giddy? And why is Kirk oh man, you're gonna get to see your old flame, even though she's with this guy?
That's right.
Stay here, Plum.
Yeah, Plum.
Because Kirk does nothing but run around looking for space pussy. Come on.
How come? Yeah, and I think Kirk loses an opportunity to change his nickname from Bones to Plum here. Anyone with me?
I'm glad he didn't do that.
I'm not with you.
Okay.
I'm against that change.
All right. Well,
but you know what else is funny about that?
When the girl was going down the hall with the food there for Sulu, all the guys were trying to wouldn't we like to follow her?
Oh, Janice Rand. Who wouldn't want her as a personal yeoman? I don't want Janice Rand as my personal yeoman. She seems not that fun.
She seems extremely incompetent for the most part.
Yeah, wasn't she eating Sulu's food? She was supposed to be bringing it to him?
Well, not only that, but that's another thing you see in this episode is Kirk eating on the bridge.
But he's always drinking or eating on the bridge.
Yeah, you don't see it that often, but I agree. But it's it's just all these little weird things that we later on don't see much of,
Well, you know what else was kind of weird is so they beam down with crewman Darnell, right? The other guy, and then so everybody sees her the way they want to see her, except Kirk. Well, I guess Kirk just saw her
pretty much for the default, what you would expect.
Yeah, an older woman, right? But Darnell, oh, you look like a woman I met on the Pleasure Planet. What's the Pleasure Planet? I'd like to.
Risa, obviously.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe Risa.
I thought it was
that was Risa before it was named. Yeah. Maybe they called it the Pleasure Planet until they named it Risa.
We know from Enterprise that they had been to Risa before this.
Yes.
So Risa's in the picture. Maybe not a Federation member yet, but
Risa was named though in Enterprise, so it must be a different. It's got to be a different planet.
Well, he could just.
Or unless it's a slang name for Risa, maybe it's
maybe.
Oh, everybody, let's meet at the Pleasure Planet.
The Pleasure Planet.
The Pleasure Planet. Tell Jose he could wait for his chili peppers.
Yeah, that was amazing. I love that. He can wait for his chili peppers from Mexico.
Yeah,
he'll be fine. He ain't gonna die.
I picked them myself.
I picked them. Is that what he does? They go from planet to planet picking chili peppers?
I guess. There's a big chili trade going on in the Federation.
That was one of my favorite parts. He's like,
that was amazing. I don't even know why you guys are shitting on this. That was amazing.
There's also some other terminology things in this episode that kind of stood out to me that don't really carry through for Star Trek. They kept calling up instead of some sick bay, they were in the dispensary, which I guess is the
dispensary.
Pharmacy.
Yeah. Well, that's where they get their weed.
That's where they get the dispensary.
Well, I get my weed there. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I guess in the future it's legalized too.
Instead of Red Alert, they had GQ, General
Quarters.
Quarters.
Yeah, General
Quarters.
Quarters.
And this was
3 and
to
4.
3 and
Yeah,
4.
but that's a lockdown thing.
Okay.
Like military bases have the same idea where it's a lockdown thing. If there's an emergency on the base, you're locked down to general quarters, which basically means you're not allowed to leave the general quarters. And then they take inventory of everybody and all that, right? So it's a way of controlling all the staff. I'm surprised they didn't continue with that though, because I think that's something that would make sense. But maybe they're trying to get away from the military aspect of things.
Maybe. Dad, go ahead.
I said I'm in GQ4 now and have been for a while.
We all have technically for a while.
Combined the quarters.
Oh yes, we've been in quarantine. I see what you're saying. Yeah, but I think like it was interesting just to see. We see the science fiction thing over and over again, but the idea of a shapeshifter infiltrating your home or your base or whatever, and then killing people because they can take a form, right? And how do you flush out such a thing? And they weren't that effectual at it, really. Like they kind of like the monster was kind of one step ahead of them at every turn, right? It felt like, despite all their technology, all of their procedures, this thing was very.
I want to know why it took them almost the entire episode to find the body of the guy that beamed up with them earlier. Like, it's not a big area. Like that arc was literally right beside the front door of that place, but they couldn't see that.
Yeah, so they could detect life signs, but not death signs or not a dead body on this kind of empty planet. So that's a kind of a disconnect. I think that's a bit of an inconsistency, but fair enough. We also talked about. I want to talk about the professor, this crater guy, because he's in the episode quite a bit. So what we learned basically from the end of the episode is that he married Dr. McCoy's old girlfriend Nancy. They went to this planet. They're kind of scientists studying ruins. A year or two after they got there, the monster killed her, and he was going to kill it, but he somehow fell in love because it could take Nancy's form, right? And so he's extremely protective of this thing and loyal, and he's fighting Kirk, and we waste a lot of time with this guy, quite frankly, until eventually it turns on him and kills him. And is that surprising? Like I just didn't quite understand why the monster turns on him after all this time.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me.
Star Trek convenience. I'm going to go with that.
Well, I think they're trying to send a message to us that that his death is kind of a consequence of him being seduced, I suppose would be the word, by the creature, and that was his undoing. Although, and that whole scene where they're, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Now the creature has got something else. Like it needed the professor, and now it's moved on. It's got the whole crew to work through, and it's a little different story. It's actually got away off the planet. It really, if it chose to do that. So, I think that he just became redundant to it.
Right. So and I don't really know. I guess we don't know anything really about the monster other than what we saw in this episode, which was kind of that it needs salt to survive. But they say, well, it's not dangerous if it's not hungry. But the second it gets hungry, it's extremely dangerous, right? Although it seems to be rational and it seems to be sentient, it's also, I don't know, like I can't quite get a grasp of whether it's animal or being, I suppose, and what its sort of morality is. If it has any. I feel conflicted by the end of this episode. I'm like, okay, is it just a poor innocent animal that kind of couldn't help itself, couldn't help its nature, or is it a predatory killer, or both? Like maybe is I don't know. What's sort of the outcome here? It was what it was.
It definitely could not be reasoned with. I mean, it didn't have a real communication.
It didn't have logic or anything. It was just kind of killing machine.
Well, that planet must have been full of salt for years and years, and then they used it all up.
Yeah, and and the salt is depleted, but so they were getting regular shipments of salt, and it went all that time without killing the professor, which is why I kind of said, so it spent all the time just him, that thing, and the professor for all those 3 to 4 years, with some occasional deliveries of salt.
So I guess the Enterprise. Oh, sorry.
No, you think you would have asked for salt to be delivered?
They did.
So is the Enterprise just grocery gateway? Like, do they just order stuff and like, I need ketchup, I need some salt, I need some chili peppers. Like, what if they mixed it up? Instead of leaving the salt, they left the chili peppers. What would have happened then? These are the things we need novelizations for.
Well, the chili peppers would have some salt, but it was interesting too. Like, talk about the need for salt in an arid desert environment, which they used to talk about in TV shows, especially in the 60s. I remember Get Smart had an episode like this where they were talking about the need for, right?
MASH.
Remember how they made it? And
MASH is the same.
MASH,
And,
yeah.
I mean, the science of, because I live in a cold country, I don't think about this, but the science of this is that you sweat more, you lose more water. The salt helps you retain water, right? So you don't become dehydrated. That's kind of the idea.
I think so.
Okay.
Well,
so
all the sports drinks and stuff have salt in it. They have a lot of sodium in them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm sure that's a reason for it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's part of it's about not becoming dehydrated.
I'm no doctor, Dave.
Me either.
Damn it, Dave! I'm not a doctor.
Yes, I'm not a doctor. I'm a podcaster, not a doctor.
Adam is just not impressed with this episode at all. I can tell. He's just like, why am I talking about this?
No. I'm not that bad. Jackson. Sorry. Pizza's here.
Gotcha.
Pizza's here.
Did you get it with chili peppers and some salt?
and salt.
And extra salt. Yes. And some swaddling all over. Yeah. I'm just coming back to McCoy, right? And the fact that he is so this is not the first time they do it in Star Trek. It's not the last. It's this idea of somebody being so hung up on their old flame. And
well, even in this series, it's that happens probably about 5 or 6 times.
Right, even after the crewman dies, after the first victim near the beginning of the episode, and then they move into like the autopsy. He's like, he didn't die of poison. She says, because Nancy the creature tries to say it was this poison Borgia, and they kind of figure out that that's bogus. And here's the line that Kirk says to McCoy: "Stop thinking with your glands." That was my favorite.
That's amazing.
Kirk telling McCoy this.
Yeah.
It's like pot, meat, kettle.
Yeah.
It was too good. And he's like, I can't sleep. I can't sleep not knowing that Nancy's missing down there. He's like, well, take one of those red pills. You'll sleep.
Yeah.
But even the
end, a whole bottle of red pills. What? Wouldn't they get them out of some kind of dispenser? Carry around a bottle.
That guy. There's a couple things that McCoy carries around all the time: sleeping pills and ecstasy. That's it. Just carries those with him all the time.
When I go to get a prescription filled, he had a bottle like that.
There's no prescriptions in the future. You just take what you want. It's fine.
Well, they do that in the Orville, right? Where you can just kind of go up to the replicator and ask for like.
I love that show.
Or whatever, So
that didn't get canceled, did it?
Well, not officially.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with the Orville. I too really like that.
I really enjoy it. Yeah.
The doctor gave me a pill and I've got a new kidney.
Exactly.
We should do those shows one day, Dave.
The Orville? I would do the Orville.
That'd be fun.
There's not that many of them. I think it's only like 18 episodes for each season.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but they're very next gen. They're very next gen feeling, I'd say.
They are, yeah.
2 more die. Sorry, I'm just trying to I don't have a ton of notes on this episode.
Well, okay. Can I we'll bring it to the end here when McCoy, when the salt vampire was attacking Kirk. Sorry, Kirk, actually Spock, and then Kirk, And what the hell was with McCoy? He's like, I can't shoot the.
Well, he's
Nancy.
infatuated with her.
Yeah, but it's not her. Like he
Yeah, but
knows this at this
The
point.
whole, you assume that there's some sort of kind of spell or something, or some
That's
sort of
what drove me
hormonal
absolutely
thing.
crazy about this episode. I was like, that the ending was just like, oh come on.
Oh yeah. Not only that, but that whole like Spock getting thrown into the bookcase thing.
Oh, that was
like,
fun. Yeah.
Oh my god! You can actually see him stop before he hits it.
But
and then he hits it.
He had the cut, and you could see the green blood, but it also looked like red blood. It was.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Yeah. If this was Nancy, could she take this?
Oh yeah, and he just starts fucking hauling on her. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
that was amazing.
That was, and he's like, well, maybe not.
That's Roddenberry's version of equality, right there.
There's a couple, like, yeah, like that's just this whole thing. Like it is, like this was equality and this was progressive. We have this whole conversation over and over again as we talk about these episodes. But like Uhura being on the bridge is one thing, but then it's you take a lot of the weight out of it when she's going on with Spock about how she's just a woman who's emotional and if she has to hear frequency one more time, she's going to.
But in reality, if my wife will say the same thing. She goes, if I have to hear mommy one more time, I'm going to just snap. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense then.
All right. And the other thing that they do is they spend a lot of time telling Spock he's not emotional enough or he doesn't care enough. Because when they tell him...
Well, and this gets back into early episodes issues, though, because at this point, you don't really know the character, right? So, like he even hints at it. He's like, well, our blood is different than your blood, Jim. You know, it's like that kind of thing. It's like, it couldn't assimilate me correctly or whatever. So...
I did get a feel because when like J.J. Abrams and those guys, they made all like the reboot movies. I feel like you can say what you want, but I feel like Kurtzman, Abrams, they were Star Wars guys. I think who watched like whatever they told them were like the top 10 original series episodes, right? And I think that this was likely in the list. And I feel like the stuff between Spock and Uhura like got lifted and put in the movie. Because I'm always like, it's not just this episode. There's a couple moments between Spock and her throughout the series, but this felt like inspiration for that. Just the fact that Sulu in this episode is a botanist.
He's in his own office and everything. Yeah.
What's with all those plants he had, like man-eating?
And what's with the puppet?
The glove plant?
The glove flower, the puppet flower.
That is clearly a glove. Like they didn't even attempt to really hide it that hard.
I don't remember this part.
So there was a flower that who was stroking it? There was somebody stroking the
Janice
flower.
Rand.
Janice Rand was stroking it. So, yeah, well, because that's all Janice Rand does is stroke it. But anyway, sorry, bad joke. But yeah, it's clearly a glove with some feathers on it or something. And it's like, rah, 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 rah. It's like, oh man. Jim Henson, it is not.
So Sulu was a botanist, and this wasn't he something else in another episode we saw? He was
So in the original pilot, the second pilot, which is the first Kirk pilot where No Man Has Gone Forward, which is aired 2 weeks after this, he's in the science division at that point. So there's supposed to be like a transition where Sulu left the science division and kind of went into the command division.
Did the same thing that what's his name did on Lower Decks. Started trying out everything.
Yeah, he transferred into whatever. But in that pilot, he's actually he's the head of the physics department for that pilot.
Yes.
Instead of the botany.
He's clearly the genius of the Star Trek Enterprise.
Really.
He can be everywhere, and then eventually they give him his own ship. They couldn't figure out that this guy was a complete creepo and was clearly something was. They were just like, "Hey, Green, why are you here randomly?" This is a guy that clearly should have been hanging out with Miri.
There it is.
There he goes. Got it. You got it in.
Got it in.
You make me happy.
It's what I like to call a Miri moment.
It's a Miri moment. He's just like such a weird guy.
So was that episode.
I thought that like he plays it very well. You kind like all the actors who have to sort of be this creature for different moments in the episode. I think they do a pretty good job of like passing that baton. You know what I mean? Like, and sort
Yeah,
of,
they all have this kind of creepy vibe to them, which is kind of cool that it kind of keeps the same thing. So yeah, I will give you that for sure, Dave. I think that's a very good
doesn't seem
observation.
convinced. He was like, maybe not.
So all the people that this thing played all kind of played it like it was out of body experience in a way. Like it was very vapid, very, very dry, I guess is a good way to look at it. I don't know if it was just bad acting, but it worked out
almost
well.
like a robot.
Yeah.
It kind of took away the personalities.
Yeah, because what we saw was that this thing, I don't know how much of a personality it truly had, because it was always like reading the mind of whatever victim it was and then using that as manipulation. But how much it really loved anything or felt about anything is kind of unclear, like other than it loves its salt tablets. That was the only thing I knew for sure it loved. Hence, Professor Crater.
Yeah, but I think that's supposed to be part of the intrigue of the alien, is the fact that you don't know much about it. Like, think of like movies like The Thing and stuff like that. You don't know a lot about the alien. It's there, and you have to deal with that. And I think in a way, this is kind of what they're trying to do with this.
Right, but when Spock's bashing it in the face, like it almost has like this smug villain look on its face, right? Like when it's
Either that or it doesn't understand what's going on. It's like, why are you hitting me? I'm just trying to eat some salt tablets and suck some brains. What's the issue?
I'm just trying to suck some salt out of your captain. What do you want?
Yeah, like, come on.
A little salt.
Yeah, like it seems like this thing has got a leg up because it could like freeze. I guess only one person at a time or something. Like maybe.
I bet its blood pressure was really high with all that salt.
I bet. And then
Next stop, McDonald's French fries.
we talked. Yeah, Adam brought up this point. McCoy, like he takes so long to decide he actually wants to take the shot, and he does, but it's a long time, and then it's over. Then he's like, "Well, that was sad. We had to kill that thing. All right, let's go." And then that's the end of the
You know what I did like about the ending, though?
Huh?
Which I don't think I've seen in much of the other episodes, is they actually show them leaving the planet, but they're showing the back view of the ship. Like so you see the planet actually getting smaller. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I wonder if that was in the original or if that was something they did for the remaster.
You should look that up for the fun facts, which you're on deck for, by the way, tonight.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Yes, without Jeff here. There was just one little thing I did skip over, which was the truth serum. So on after they finally take down that professor, they stun him, which changed his voice for a few minutes. Like, did you guys all pick up on that?
Yeah.
Ooh. But then he started to go back to normal. So I'm like, okay, the phaser changed his voice, which they don't continue to do after this. But when they get him up to the ship, they say, will you help us? Will you help us identify this thing? He's like, I could, but I won't because I love it. It's just trying to defend itself. And then Spock's like, I suggest truth serum. This felt like a violation of his rights. Anyone with me?
No.
I'm not with you. No.
You know what though? You're right. What like the whole thing though. I mean, he was opposed to a bunch of stuff, and I mean, I know why he didn't want the medical test, because that would obviously, expose her or him or it, right? But the whole thing that they show up they send a starship once a year to a planet for two people to give them a medical. That seems a little odd to me, especially in the.
Well, they have to drop off the salt and the peppers. Might as well give them an exam at the same time.
Yeah. Moon River.
Here's your peppers. Here's your salt. Now bend
He
over.
wasn't very cooperative, but the whole point though is, I mean, we show up and you just have to surrender your body for a test, and you have to give us like a lie detector test with a chemical. It is very invasive and again, not very Star Trek, I guess, especially, but I don't know. It wasn't, it didn't really cross my mind until you just brought it up.
Well, it did, like, it felt very un-Federation to me that they were going to do this. I get it was in the pursuit of capturing something murdering people, and I guess you could justify it, but the ethics of it seemed questionable, especially for Spock to suggest it.
I'm just hoping nobody handled those chili peppers and then give prostate exams, because that would really suck.
Yeah, you don't want that capsaicin up the.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Something there, yeah, that would be worse than getting the salt sucked out of your body, maybe.
Maybe.
You notice one other thing though is that Kirk actually seemed upset when his crew member was killed there in the beginning, which is odd for him. He usually just looks at it and goes,
He's like, another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
It depends if it's a department head or not.
Yeah, it really depends on if it's somebody that he actually interacts with or if it's just one of them lower deck people.
It's like when he notices a girl for the first time. Oh, who are you?
Yeah. He's like, so which deck are you on?
Yeah, and he gets up and he reads her pad or whatever, and
yeah, here, take my coffee cup and my old my napkin
and whatever I keep eating on the bridge. Yeah,
it's too good.
The random fruit candy things.
Yeah. But I think that's it for the plot, guys. So we can jump into the facts.
yes, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I kind of predicted that was going to happen, so I've already brought up some fun facts. So that's why you saw me typing away after a while.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Dave.
Take us away, Dave. Great bird of the galaxy.
All right. Although this is the first episode to air on NBC, this is actually the 6th episode produced. NBC chose to air this episode first because they felt that it had more action than any of the first 5 episodes. And it also featured a monster. How exciting. All right. It was Gene Roddenberry. What's that?
They had a phaser fight with an old guy who's it was just like this was their action scene. Kirk and Spock against some lunatic shooting at them randomly. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. It was Gene Roddenberry's idea to have the creature in its illustrious form speak Swahili to Uhura. Kathy Fitzgibbon supplied him with the translation. In English, the crewman says, "How are you, friend? I think of you, beautiful lady. You should never know loneliness." So that's actually what it was in Swahili.
And
just
so
in case you...
It is kind of cool to like have this like, well, we talked, Uhura's place in history and everything else, but also she's not even just, like a black, but she's also African, specifically Swahili. And I think that's important for the whole international vibe of the, of the crew. Right. It's a different choice. Which I think is commendable.
So if you go based on when the episodes were produced, this obviously being actually the 6th episode, this is actually the first time on camera Uhura actually wears a red uniform instead of the gold one. So the episodes that came before this actually had her in the gold outfit. So this is the first time it was she was in the red outfit.
Which is why I go by production number.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason.
A female crew member wearing pants can be seen in the corridor. Star Trek, the original series Charlie X, is the only other episode featuring a crewman wearing pants.
Like specifically a woman wearing pants, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so like I thought that was interesting. I did notice that too. I also noticed some of the older like Pike pilot uniforms were in some shots as well. But I thought because beyond that one time wearing pants, we never see a woman officer in original series not wearing the skirt and boots, right?
Yeah. The model that was used originally in this episode is actually the same model that is actually in the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. So the one that you see there is actually the model that they used for this. They then changed it over to a different model, but the model that's there on display is actually the one that was used in this episode. How exciting. Even though we don't get to see that because we're watching the remasters. Which are all CG'd. So here's an interesting one. Dr. McCoy's handheld medical scanners were actually modified salt and pepper shakers, purchased originally for use in this episode, in which the character was seen using a salt shaker. They were of Scandinavian design and on screen were not recognizable as salt shakers. So a few generic salt shakers were borrowed from the studio commissionary, and the futuristic-looking shakers became McCoy's medical instruments. So there you go. They actually use salt shakers. What's that?
If you want some sci-fi props, go to IKEA.
That's right. It's all about IKEA. It is reported that Gene Roddenberry's father was so embarrassed after the airing of this episode that he went through the neighborhood to apologize to his neighbors.
Dad, is that what you did when you heard the first episode of Star Trek Radio Theater? Did you go around apologizing to your neighbors?
I think he's still doing it.
I might have for the first Star Trek the movie.
So Ted, what you should have said is nobody watches it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I don't need to apologize. No one's.
I'm just kidding. I'm kind of making fun of myself there because I've been on it too. So in the conversation with Uhura, Spock reveals that Vulcan has no moon. There you go. How exciting. So this is the first episode that was produced that has McCoy saying the line, "He's dead, Jim." There you go. So that came from that as well. Okay. In Leonard Nimoy's Star Trek Memories, a 1983 book, Leonard Nimoy mentioned that the fact that NBC chose to air this episode first, since, at least to the network, it was a proper science fiction with a proper alien menace. Nimoy also stated that of the episodes the cast and crew had already completed, this was their least favorite.
Yeah.
So literally they went against everybody and used this as the first episode.
Right. Well, and so sometimes I question, because Netflix chooses to go by air date, right? So if anybody's because a lot of people are completists and they like to go through things in order, right? So a lot of people, but the fact that on Netflix, the Christopher Pike, the Cage, comes before the Man Trap, even though that
he's
air.
Raging now. He's raging.
The Cage didn't even air on TV until the 1980s.
Testify, Dave. Testify.
Well, I just don't understand people's logic around this. It makes no sense.
It's just like finding an old Elvis song in the files.
Yeah, but it's not the first episode. It's like.
Dave, here's a fun fact directly for you.
It aired, so it's the first episode. Sorry.
But the Cage didn't air. So what is it?
The Cage.
No. I'm not even talking about the Cage. I'm talking about this one.
But on Netflix, the Cage is there. It's episode.
The Cage is before this. Yeah.
Anyway,
Netflix is all out of whack to begin with. On modern TV shows, they're pretty good.
If you're watching these
classic ones or not.
Because you're gonna see Uhura's in the red, and then she's not in the red anymore, and there's gonna be all like those.
Just madness.
Madness.
Dave, I have an update for you. The Calgary Flames and the Toronto Maple Leafs are currently at 0-0 after the end of the second period. So just
is this what Jeff is skipping this podcast for, to watch a 0-0?
I believe that's what has happened.
5 periods.
I'm predicting a Calgary 2-0 win. Just so you know. Anyway,
we lost last time we played them. So.
What can you do? The phaser sound of the beam stunning Dr. Crater was a sped up recording of a bullet ricochet.
He had that old looking phaser from the pilot.
That made a mean noise. That when that went off, it scared. I wasn't quite ready for what the noise was, and it.
That was cool when when that thing blew up too. That was a cool effect. Yeah,
that was James Doohan, better known as Scotty, does not appear in this episode, but he is briefly heard on Kirk's communicator in dialogue lifted from another episode. So there you go. I didn't even hear that, so
me either.
I don't know if I'm going to go back to check it. Quite honestly, I don't think I will. Anyway,
I'll get right on that.
Yeah, well, Adam, you're in charge of that. The phaser Dr. Crater used against Kirk and Spot is a reused. Did I say Spot? Spock is a reused laser pistol from the first pilot, Star Trek: The Original Series, The Cage. So there you go.
Right.
This episode is. Oh, go ahead.
That plant. I didn't pick up on this on the episode, but that plant that with the puppet, it even had a name, Beauregard.
Yeah.
Also known as Gertrude, was an animate carnivorous plant kept in the botany section.
Yeah, and it like to eat meat.
And it doesn't like salt vampires. And
the animated plant in the scene was hand controlled from under the table.
Mm-hmm.
And Whitney later recalled that the operator, Whitney was, is that Rand Whitney?
Yes.
Grace Whitney?
Yes.
And Whitney later recalled that the operator could see right up her skirt throughout the shoot and would occasionally try to grope her using the puppet.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
We're not talking about Miri.
Okay. And why is Janice Rand such like woo woo? Like, can you
later recalled that the operator could see right up her skirt throughout the shoot and would occasionally try to grope her using the puppet. There you go.
That's
Wow. This podcast took a turn, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right. More fun facts. All right. This episode made an impression on future Star Trek Enterprise from 2001 staff writer Chris Black, who was in kindergarten at the time when he saw this installment. Quote, I remember seeing the salt vampire, the M113 creature, and running out of the room in terror.
Yeah.
So there you go. This is a very rare episode that reveals something from Dr. McCoy's past, namely his former love, Nancy. Most other episodes keep all of his past a history and his history a secret.
Right, because but in a lot of other lore, he has like an ex-wife who or whatever, and they mentioned this a little bit in the movie, in the 2009 movie. But yeah, like she was even going to have a daughter at one point. I think we talked about this like a long time ago, where Kirk was going to hit on the daughter when she showed up in the 4th season, but that never happened.
True. The bridge sound effects still retain sounds from the 2 pilots. By the time Gene Roddenberry left as a producer, those original sounds were not heard again, with a brief exception of being heard while on the bridge of the Exeter and the Lexington. The DVD releases, however, have overlaid these older sound effects in on every episode. They are presented as rear channel sounds that give the episode a surround sound effect. There you go. How exciting. I don't think that was a very fun fact, quite honestly. Let's see if I can find something more fun here.
A fun fact I have is that the guy Daniels, who was the director, he directed more Star Trek episodes than any other person.
Well, I thought you were going to tell me he molested more people.
No, didn't get to that.
Kirk's run down in the corridor to the sickbay is recycled footage from Star Trek, the original series, The Naked Time, as a reaction shot of Kirk when Spock is telling him about the Borga plant and sickbay video display interface. I don't think we've actually watched that episode, have we? Naked Time?
I don't think we have.
No. All right. This episode takes place 206 years after Star Trek 8 First Contact, which was 1996. I have no idea what the hell that is. Anybody else? Well, I guess technically First Contact would be the movie First Contact. So 260 years. I don't know why they would write it that way. I don't call it Star Trek 8. Anyway. So apparently this episode takes place 260 years exactly after the events of First Contact. I'm just reading them. Don't hurt me. All right.
How do they know that? How does that establish?
I don't know how they know that, quite honestly. And at this point, I don't care. Optical effects work was quicker than any other episode, with Howard A. Anderson Jr. taking 2 months rather than up to 3 times as long for other episodes. There you go. Body count in this episode. Anybody want to take a guess?
6, 7.
Oh,
7.
3.
It was 7. How many red shirts?
None.
3.
None. Exactly, Dave. You got that right. Good for you.
Yeah. Unless that guy in the spacesuit, we don't know what color shirt he was wearing because he was wearing.
You want to hear an interesting one?
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't have to do with molestation, I'm good.
No. Settle down. A month prior to the premiere of Star Trek, Desi Liu, who owned it, held a screening for the NBC executives to decide which episode they should broadcast first. Executives were concerned that Mudd's Women, one potential choice, would have reviewers discussing space hookers. They felt another possibility where No Man Has Gone Before contained too much exposition, even though it was filmed as a second pilot. The final choice was between the Man Trap and the Naked Time. Justin felt that the Naked Time would make it easier for viewers to understand the characters, but later agreed with NBC's decision to show the Man Trap first. In the book Inside Star Trek, the real story says it was scarier, more exploitable than the others.
Like, I don't know what episode I would have picked if I had to pick the best of the lot, in these first 10 episodes or whatever. Probably Balance of Terror was the best episode of them, so if that was an option.
I would agree.
they could have aired that first, but
They were up against Star Trek, Ron Eli's Star Trek as the main thing, but they won the ratings with 46.7% of all televisions at the time were turned into that episode. Okay.
Interesting.
So
All right, shall I pick one more, Dave?
one more, and then we'll go to
One
ratings.
more? Okay, one more here. Hold on. Okay. In the original script, the moral dilemma of killing the last of its kind had been more pronounced, with the creature disguised as McCoy trying to reason with the crew. See, now that would have been cool to see. Also in that version, Professor Crater lives in the end, mourning the loss of the creature. Gene Roddenberry's rewrite for the final draft toned down the emotional aspects of the McCoy relationship in favor of the more straightforward plot. As a cornered animal, the salt creature panics and actually kills its longtime companion, Professor Crater. So, you know what? I kind of wouldn't have minded to see that original version, quite honestly.
Yeah, so that was Roddenberry's rewrite. Interesting.
Yeah, so Roddenberry ruined it, basically, is a good way to look at this.
Well, it felt like I don't know. I don't think it was the right choice for the story. I think it would have been more interesting. You're right, to see Crater sort of mourn it or like sort of.
But if they're trying to get rid of all the expedition, that certainly wouldn't have been a good way to do that.
We kind of were talking about how this episode was too long, so they dragged out this, but they kept.
Yeah, but at least the ending would have been a little bit more interesting. Like the ending was pretty cut and dry on this episode. I think Adam would probably agree with me on this one. Like we knew that was going to happen. Like there was no debate. What do you think, Adam?
About this, the Star Trek episodes back in that time frame. In Canada, it was aired on CTV, and it was aired 2 days before the U.S. Version. So this actually showed in Canada on a Tuesday, and in the U.S. on a Thursday, and that was the way it ran for the whole time.
Really?
But they always ran whenever.
The U.S. Yeah.
That was a good fun fact. I like that one.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that because I assumed you watched it on NBC back then, but you watched it on CTV.
Yeah. We didn't get NBC.
Out of Boston, you wouldn't have gotten in those
We
days?
didn't get it till probably 70 when cable came in.
Okay.
I have had a bloody eyelash in my eye for this entire podcast.
Well, here, how about I take you off video while you fix that, and I'll put up.
No, that's fine.
So, but let's rate this episode. So I'll go first. The Man Trap is, for me, it's in the 6s, I'd say. I wouldn't go higher than probably 6.5. Jeff's not here. Dad, over to you.
I would give it higher, Dave. I think it was a Trek center. So I have to go with a 7.9.
7.9. Okay, just slightly below the changeling for you. Adam.
6.
6, much more below the changeling, where you agreed with that last week. You're farther apart this time. And Jody.
I'm gonna give it a 6 as well.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to confirm. Okay, so that gives us.
Even though I thought I was farther away from Adam, but I guess I wasn't as far as I thought I was.
So that averages that at a modest 6.6. The average for the entire series for us so far has been 7.2. And that was the 46th episode we've watched. So there are
online with IBMB.
There are only IMDb. Yeah, IMDb has a 7.3. So averages at 7 for the
overall 7.7.
Yeah, well, we're not that far apart. We're all sort of between 6 and 8. But
I'm right on it.
You're right on. You're more in cut. You're more in line with the larger audience, perhaps. Okay, and so here is just our list of all the episodes that we the ones that we have not watched are highlighted in yellow there, so we can kind of scroll through them. I don't know if anybody has.
I think Adam said he has one.
Adam's got one.
Let's do Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Tomorrow's Yesterday.
Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Tomorrow is Yesterday. Is that season 1? Oh, here it is. Okay, Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Season 1, episode 21.
I remember what that one was about.
It's a pretty good episode.
Season 1, production number 21. Air date, no clue.
Yeah, I have to throw that in, don't you?
I do. So tomorrow is yesterday. I'm going to just take this down and bring you guys back. Just so I can quickly look that up. Tomorrow is yesterday, which is an episode about what? Hurled back in time to the year 1969, where the U.S. Air Force sights.
Oh, this is the plain one. I like this one. Okay.
I like this one too.
Yeah.
Interesting. A time travel episode. Those are always good.
Growing up, I was a big air junkie, so planes were my thing. So I remember this episode now. Yeah, okay. I know exactly what this is.
All right, tomorrow is
a good
yesterday.
episode.
I remember enjoying it, so I'm sure I will. Yeah.
There's one episode that's on the list too that I'm really looking forward to when we get around to watching it, which is it's called Friday's Child, which
Yeah, I
has
like that too.
Julie Newmar. We haven't done that one yet.
Catwoman.
Catwoman. Well, one of the Catwomen from the Adam West era. But yes, so next week we'll be talking about Tomorrow is Yesterday, which is. I wrap my head around all that, and we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about that. Now, also, guys, I'm going to be starting Big Brother next week, so we may have to talk about start times a little bit, but we'll figure that out because Jeff and Jaemeel and I are going to be covering Big Brother Canada as that starts next Wednesday and Thursday night.
Well, Jeff won't be there because hockey's still on.
Yeah, there's a hockey game because we're kind of Jaemeel and I are always like, Jeff, you're going to come, right? You know, because Jeff's a fan of the U.S. Big Brother, but the Canadian Big Brother he's always been very critical of.
Hey, get the loose schedule and plan your games around it.
I better plan it around. If Jaemeel and I are there, it will be fine. But it's he's definitely not as passionate about the Canadian brand. I will say that much. Anyway, so that's going to be starting next week on Super Mated Brothers Podcasting. We'll be doing Wednesday, Thursday premiere next week, and then it will be a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule. However, I think we're going to do Ted Treks before we do the Wednesday Big Brother because of just Jameel's work schedule. So anyway, we're going to work all that out. But that's Super Mated Brothers Podcasting. That's getting going on that next week. We also have Live Long and Podcast. We have Wednesdays. We have Tuesdays, Deep Space Nine. And we also have our weekend radio theater shows. This one we're doing is going to be Voyagers coming up on Saturday. We're going to be doing, what's it called?
Voyager did a mirror episode?
No, we're doing the closest thing, which is called Living Witness, which is the one where, where the doctor he gets like woken up after 900 years. And he finds out
yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's all this revisionist history.
It's not a bad.
Yeah, it's the closest thing we could kind of come up with. And we're just trying to, we're finishing out our Mirror Universe theme. We have a special guest star that's coming in for this one. So check that out. Saturday night at 9. We'll be doing.
Can you ruin it or no?
Well, I can. Well, it's going to be on the poster tomorrow, so it'll be announced tomorrow. But nobody of you guys would know. But it's a friend of a friend, sort of. Anyway, so they're going to be coming in for this one, cool. and then we're getting out of the Mirror Universe stuff, and we'll be doing some other stories as well. Check out our back catalog on just Discovery Podcast, Picard, and Lower Decks. That's all there, and we'll be covering Strange New Worlds and all those shows.
Did you hear a rumor about Picard?
I heard they start production.
Did you also hear about Denise Crosby?
No, I didn't. They getting her in the fold?
Might be
Sela, maybe.
Sela.
It will be Sela if it's anybody. Yeah.
It won't be.
It'll have to be Sela. Yeah.
But it'd be cool.
It's the only character she plays that's still alive.
Imagine if the Tasha Yar from yesterday's Enterprise isn't actually dead, and they brought her back,
and she just shows up. No, that might be fun too.
That could be fun too. So there's a lot.
Anyway, don't quote me on it. I just heard some rumors on the old interwebs.
Yes. Okay. Well, interesting rumors there. And then also check out Trivial Debates this Sunday morning. We're going to be doing, assuming there's no hockey game at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Jeff's going to be hosting. We have Jessica Chan, Jaemeel Robertson, and Chris Seymour competing as we have some interesting questions. And
I'm going to make a prediction. It's not going to be Chris.
We'll see.
Why?
Yeah. All
right. He always picks really weird stuff.
He always just pick. I feel like he's trying to lose sometimes.
I think he really does try sometimes. Yeah. He's got us all fooled.
He's just going for the record or whatever.
I'm waiting to see Adam on there again. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I've said twice now. I gotta say yes next time, or Dave won't ask me anymore.
That's not true.
No,
I say no to him all the time. He still asks me.
Yeah, so we only do that once a month now. We used to do it weekly, so
We used to do it like literally
it was
every
busier,
week.
but I like the once a month. It's good.
The once a
check
month
that-
is nice. Yeah.
It's nice. So check that out Sunday morning, and that's all our shows. And we'll see you next week here as we talk